It happened every November. The people in Wolfridge were suddenly overwhelmed with a hunger for violence. No one was sure why or when it started, but we were plagued and delighted by images and dreams of murdering strangers and friends and ourselves. Everyone knew it was real, but we all pretended it wasn't. Just a boogeyman story you tell kids to keep them from getting in trouble when they're older. Our parents lied to us and said it was an urban legend, but we all knew they dreamed about slitting their own parents' throats. We all knew. As if it were a sickness, some kind of seasonal virus like the flu, there were those of us who ended up coming down with it harder than others. Cash was pretty much patient zero this year. I could almost see his urges radiating off of him. Why Porter, though? I dropped the cigarette and stubbed it out with the toe of my shoe. Cash slid his hands into his pockets. I could see his cheeks were turning pink, cold-bitten. It was getting darker. We needed to leave. Because he deserves it the most. Cash watched the city below us. The streetlights were popping on in rows. I didn't know what Porter Dawes had done to make Cash mad, but it was November, so it could have been nothing. It could have been that Porter looked at him wrong. Our November sickness had infected Cash to his core. He must have carried the virus from birth, sleeping inside him. But now, it was awake, and it was hungry. I looked over my shoulder at the car, parked a few yards back, behind the dead-end sign nailed to the fence blocking the rest of the dirt road. The fence was new. Last November, Kristen Daniels smashed through the old one in her dad's truck. I remembered my pulse quickening when the news made its way through the school hallways, my mouth watering. Cash skipped school that day and came up here to see the crime scene tape laced through the tree limbs, to peek over the edge of the bluff and see the mangled remains of the truck at the bottom. It took them days to remove it. A few of us stood along the tree line smoking cigarettes as they brought the crane in to lift it out of the twisting branches and underbrush. There was a constellation of blood spatter across the spider-webbed windshield. Cash's hands were still tucked into his pockets. I wanted to slide my fingers around his wrist, inch my hand between his arm and hip bone. I didn't. I looked down at Wolfridge, watched the headlights moving down Getty Street. Sometimes I could see my house from the bluff, but that night, it was too dark. The lights must have all been off. No one was home. Maybe I'll just burn the whole place down. Cash flicked the lighter on. Even in the glow of the flame, his eyes still looked black. 2. No one was home when I got to my house. Cash dropped me off, and I shuffled across the cold, burnt lawn with my hands shoved deep into my jacket pockets. He was on his way to a shift at the diner, the only restaurant in Wolfridge that stayed open past 8. If you wanted the chain places, you had to take the interstate a good 15 miles into the city. We hardly ever did. I pushed the door shut behind me with my foot, dropping my backpack on the floor. The house was quiet. Only the small lamp in the living room was on. Dad left it on for me when he was going to be late, just one of our many unspoken codes. As I moved through the house, I flicked lights on. Being there alone in the dark made me anxious. When Dad got home, he'd probably make a joke about the electric bill. He taught history at the high school, but with all the budget cuts, he'd also had to pick up some extra tutoring jobs over in the city. Most people in Wolfridge had to go into the city to find better jobs. During the day, the streets in town were practically